Welcome to LCS Talks. I'm Berkeley Glazer, and I'm the principal of our middle school.
And I am Kevin Merchandani. I am the Director of Instruction for K-12.
Kevin, what do we have going on today in our podcast?
Yeah, Berkeley, this is always really special to have students join us at the table. We've done this once before with our New York Bronx service learning debrief in March, if you tune into that episode. And this episode invited a panel of three amazing students and an amazing teacher, one of our house directors, Kara Davis. We'll reintroduce again in a moment here, but really excited to hear their experiences of faith and learning in a different part of the world. We are going to be hearing about their service learning experience to the New York Bronx area. And it was a super formative experience, of course, for them, and we know for our community. So really excited to connect some of this to the work that we're doing with our curriculum development, trying to think about what it means to be faithfully engaged in the world and to learn through service. And we know, as we've shared previously on different podcast episodes, that service is not always something that we do for others, but it's something that we are posturing ourselves with a sense of openness to learn from and with others, and to know about what they experience in the world and how God is working, and to bring that into our community so we can grow faithfully. So this is a great opportunity to hear how our students are being impacted in faith and learning, growing interculturally, and we are really excited to have our students joining us here on our panel today.
Well, let me introduce the panel today. With us, we have Molly.
Hi, super excited to be here.
Awesome. We have Noah.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And we have Elizabeth.
Good to be here.
And we have Mrs. Davis.
Hello, everyone.
So we're going to jump into some questions. And the first one is going to have you guys just tell us a little bit about your history, when you started at LCS, and then tell us two things that you love about our school. We'll start with Molly.
I came to this school in grade 8, and some of my favorite things about the school is definitely like chapels. I love getting to worship with like surrounding of like our community, and that brings me to my second point, like just the community here, having a community where I know that like it's Christ-centered and that everybody like has like a belief for God, and that it's just super comforting to know that I'm not the only one.
Awesome. Yeah,
Wow,
Noah, jump in.
That's awesome. I'd say I'm really thankful for the sports programs we have here, and just the community that we have. Also adding on to Molly, and just being able to share our faith and being able to, for example, pray for our game or our tournament before, and just being able to give the glory to God, and not worry about what our reputation, but worry about God, and just representing Him well and representing LCS well.
Awesome, Noah. And Elizabeth?
I started at LCS at the beginning of this school year, and I think one of my favorite parts is like what Molly said, like chapel, and just being able to like praise God with like our peers and not be afraid to like hide our faith with others. And the teachers have been like super supportive, and like it's just been refreshing.
That's awesome. Well, it's really great to hear the different parts of our school community that you're excited about and that have been impacting you. We are continuing to share in this season of podcasts on our core programs. We've heard from Noah on our athletics program, and we've talked lots about spiritual formation and how important that is with our community. So would love to hear from each of you about this service learning experience. And so, Ms. Davis, maybe give us a bit of the context, the who, what, where, when, why, some of those pieces. And this was happening November 1st to November 10th, so not too long ago, but would love to hear about the experience, if you can reconstruct the trip for us.
For sure, yeah. We, I feel like we're still coming back from New York in some ways. We left November 1st with a group of 29 students. Most of those were volleyball players from our school, and that's kind of how the trip was dreamt up, and that's why it was in November, just in the middle of our season, kind of to bond us together. But there was also opportunities to use our sport to serve others in New York, and Mr. Sapelt was on board with that, and so we just kind of started to develop this trip in a sports ministry way. And it November 1st to November 9th, we flew into Manhattan. Where did we fly into? What's that? JFK.
JFK.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we took all our luggage through the subway system and on the air trains, and it was crazy, and
Yeah.
arrived to our hostel after no sleep on our red-eye flight,
Oh, yeah,
which
that
was
was
crazy.
awesome.
Yeah,
That was
it was
great.
super fun. And yeah, we spent the day sightseeing, and then we spent the Sunday kind of familiarizing ourselves with New York. Mr. Sapel is an amazing tour guide.
Oh, yeah.
He was good. And we went to an NCAA volleyball game the first day, and kind of got to know a little bit about this after-school program we were going to. And then every day that we were there, Monday through Friday, we were able to go to PS29, a school in the Melrose Projects in the Bronx. And we were able to just serve and show up and whatever they needed from us. And so the principal was really awesome, really scary, but really awesome. If you're listening, Ms. Presco, you are awesome. But we would show up and just whatever they needed from us. And so in that week specifically, they were really asking for us to build into their middle school programs because there's such a high dropout rate, especially in literacy and numeracy stuff. So quite a few of our students were in their math classes. And then we would just show up on the field and play volleyball, teach them volleyball, play tag, kind of anything that they wanted us to do. We were able to do that. What was a highlight for you, Elizabeth, going to PS29?
Yeah, I was just super impacted by like how happy and joyful the kids were like all the time, and just like being able to spend like one-on-one time with a couple of them while we were helping in the classes was just like such a cool experience for me.
Yeah, it was awesome being able to go back there a couple days in a row. We can talk about that later, but there was a really cool opportunity that came on the Thursday. There was a Pro D, and so we were a little bit upset because the students weren't going to be there, and so we showed up anyways, and they actually had a lacrosse training program. I'm not sure if you heard about that, Kevin, but it was a highlight for a lot of us,
So
being able to
awesome.
see how sport is used to kind of take these kids, show them that there is more opportunity through sport and through education, and they paired those together really well. It was really inspiring for a lot of our students there. Every day at 2:20, 2:30ish, we would get our bags, say goodbye to the kids, which was always a little bit emotional, and we'd walk about half an hour through the Bronx, which, let me tell you, was an experience. We were told all sorts of things from the people in the Bronx.
fine.
It was fine, but at times it was a little scary as an adult taking care of 29 kids. But we would walk to St. Anne's, which was our after-school care program. We were able to give each student buddies leading into September, and so they got to FaceTime and write letters to their buddies and kind of build that relationship a little bit. And when we got there, we got to meet our buddies, and I know for Molly and Noah, they had best friend buddies. Their buddies were super cute. Molly, do you want to talk a little bit about, I know you were so impacted by our time at St. Anne's. Do you want to talk a little bit about your highlight
Yeah,
there?
I'd love to. So my buddy and Noah's buddy, they were like combined. They were best friends, and it was just super, super cool to get to see like how they were like a family there, kind of like each person like in the classrooms were just like interconnected and would talk to each other, and their teacher was just like loved them, and it was just super cool to see all the love that was just in the building. And
Yeah, St. Anne's program was really cool because they would each get dinner every night as well, and then their parents would pick them up after their caregiver. And so a lot of the kids would show up every single day for the entire year. Noah wanted to add something.
And my buddy was Jocelyn, and Molly's buddy was Chelsea, and they, as she said, they were awesome, and they loved each other and were best friends. And so it was kind of cool how we at first, Jocelyn didn't really like me. And, I was the only guy-girl combo with the buddies. But as time went on...
It worked out perfectly.
Yeah. As time went on, we built the connection, and it was awesome. And we got to spend some great quality time with, each other, and it was awesome, yeah.
And what did she do for you on the last day, Noah?
Oh, yeah. This was crazy. I didn't even see this coming. So on the last day, we prepared, gifts for our buddies, our little buddies, and... me and Molly both had some stitch gifts. Yeah, there was a pencil case, and we filled them with all little gifts for Jocelyn and Chelsea. And then when we gave them to them, they were so happy and they were so joyful. And then Jocelyn, out of nowhere, she gives me a whole bag of gifts herself, and I did not see that coming. I didn't even know that they were giving gifts, and apparently, she gave me an amazing gift, and I was so joyful and thankful for it. But it was awesome.
It was really cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, St. Anne's was awesome. We played outside a lot with the kids. We spent some time doing homework with them, just to, again, really encourage and reinforce how important education is for a lot of these kids. And then they'd play outside for a couple hours, and you guys were absolutely exhausted. After St. Anne's, our nights ranged a little bit from sightseeing. We got to go to the Apollo Theater. We got to go to the girls went to a Broadway show. The boys went to an NBA game. But there was 2 nights that we were actually able to compete with a team in the Bronx. And so the girls went the first night, and we showed up having no idea what was going to happen, and got to compete against a really high-level club in the Bronx, which was really cool. And we got to build relationships and share a little bit about why we were there, because they thought it was just so strange. They thought we lived in igloos and all those things. But we got to compete against them, and then the boys got to compete against the boys on the Thursday night.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, the main highlight for me, this wasn't one of the questions, but I'm going to say it anyways. I think the highlight for me was just these 29 kids that showed up and were willing to go out of their comfort zone and go serve and see how God showed up for them in New York was really beautiful. And we became kind of a closer knit crew. Like, a lot of the kids hadn't really talked to each other before. And you guys, I see each other even now in the hallways and going for coffee and praying for each other and stuff. It's really beautiful to see. And we spent a lot of time in the mornings and evenings kind of debriefing and connecting, sharing our stories about who you guys are. And I think that was really meaningful for you guys. Noah, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, each time in the morning we had a couple of students sharing their devotional is what we called it, and just like a little story of how their lives, came to Jesus and how they came to LCS and why they came on the trip. And it was just really cool to hear each and everyone's story, and not like knowing many of them. It was really cool to just get to know them more. And I built so many more relationships and meaningful ones too. And so it was just awesome to hear their stories and share my own as well. And where many people didn't know, like, I came from Guatemala when I was younger. Like, my first language was Spanish. No one really knew that. And so it was just really cool to share.
Very cool. This next question is kind of along the same theme, but it refers to, like, what was meaningful or impactful for you in terms of a story or experience. And I know you've already kind of shared that, but is there something else that comes to mind? And maybe we'll start with Molly, and then Noah, and then Elizabeth, and then Mrs. Davis.
For me, something that was super impactful for me was one of the days at PS 29, me, Noelle, and some other people, we got to go down to the cafeteria at the school and have lunch with the class. And so these kids didn't have lunches packed and stuff like that. So they would all get food from the cafeteria, and me and Noelle were just sitting there watching them eat and stuff, and they were so concerned that we didn't have food. And so even though they had so little, they kept on trying to give us food and give us their lunches and stuff. And so it was just super awesome to see how even though they have so little, they were just giving and giving, and so that was super cool.
Awesome, Molly.
Yeah, one highlight that I shared in chapel actually is probably my top highlight. Lacrosse, we had a practice, or they had a practice, and we joined them in, I think it was Wednesday. And we originally weren't planning to go to the practice. We were planning to do something else, but plans changed, and we went over to the practice, and it was really cool because we got to play lacrosse, and I've never played lacrosse, and it was really fun. But and then after that, we split it up, girls and boys, and we, us athletes like me, Landon, and Sam, and Finn were able to share our athletic journeys and how we came to play volleyball, and so that was really cool. And then even after, their coach Nate was his name, he asked if any of the boys wanted to share, and they were totally open to sharing their stories and how Coach Nate impacted their lives. And it was just really inspiring how coaches impact their lives so drastically, and it really inspired me to maybe be a coach or a teacher someday. So that was really cool.
Awesome. It's a great profession, Noah. You continue to think about
That'd
it.
be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
we'll
about
see.
for you there, Elizabeth?
There was so many impactful things, but I think on the first day at PS 29, we were just all kind of waiting on the field, just hanging out with each other. And the first group of kids came out, and they were just so excited. Like, they hadn't even met us before, and they, like, ran onto the field and gave us, like, the biggest hugs. And, like, before I could even ask them what they want to go do, like, they were like, come play with me. So it was just, like, really cool, I think, to just see the joy and the cheerfulness in their lives. Like, even though we kind of knew that they weren't coming from, like, maybe super supportive families or just, like, hard, like, lives to begin with. So, yeah, I think it was just, like, seeing their cheerfulness was just amazing.
Yeah, there's something beautiful about that encounter with a child that has so much openness and so much of Jesus that they bring to us. I remember moments of when I was a part of different service learning experiences, and one particular moment where I had met a little girl that my wife had met several years before that. And I remember realizing this girl is being Christ to me, and I see the image of God in her, and she reveals that to me. And that is something I've really taken with me about how impactful it is to learn from children. So we don't need to be older to grow in faith and to meet Jesus. Jesus sometimes shows up in the least of these, or the smallest of these in many cases too. So yeah, Mrs. Davis, anything for you impactful?
Yeah, I kind of, to add on to that, Kevin, yeah, like I have a couple kids of my own, and one of them is in grade 1 here at Langley Christian, and so I spent a bit of time at PS 29 with the little kids, just kind of seeing how different life would be, and from the tiny things like their lunches just broke my heart, just all packaged food, and so I just asked questions like, what do you guys eat in a day, or what do you do when you get home, and it was just really, yeah, I mean, eye-opening to see that not all these kids have communities like we do, where, you know, my kids' grandparents will pick them up, or one of my students will go play with them, and they get a lot of fruits and vegetables, and that kind of stuff is really basic for us. But again, I think the highlight for me, and just like thinking back to the trip, I can visualize like the joy that Molly had playing with her buddy, and just this crazy like energy that all of you guys had, and you would go from like 8 a.m. to like some nights like 11 p.m. nonstop, no complaining. And my prayer was just for the students that they would get sparked with something, that God would, you know, reveal to them some new passion, or something that, I don't know, that they would have a heart for, the least of these, but just other people. And so after the lacrosse tournament, I was walking with Noah from the school to St. Anne's, and he was just like so excited. Noah, you're awesome. And Noah just goes, man, that was so cool. And I'm like, yeah, it's crazy how you guys have been impacted by coaches here. And like, this is our heart and our passion as coaches. But sometimes one Coach Nate or Coach Megan would just say to their kids, like, one thing, like, hey, let's do your homework before we go to practice. And they'd be like, oh, man, Miss Megan's the best. She's making me do my homework. Like, so cool. And Noah was just like, Miss Davis, I think I want to be a coach. Like, I think I want to inspire younger kids and show what I've been gifted to other kids. And so that was a highlight for me, seeing, like, the sparks just ignite for Jesus and what he's called you guys to. And, yeah, you guys are all really good examples of that.
That's awesome. Noah, you had something to jump in?
Yeah,
and share?
I was wanting to share about, like, the love I have for, like, you know, hanging out for kids or with kids, and just being able to, like, you know, shine God's light on them and love them, and, like, as Jesus did when, you know, he loves kids, and he told us that in the Gospels. And so, yeah, I just really like to, you know, share my love with them, and, like, New York was a great opportunity to do that. And, yeah, I just encourage people to do it as well. And, like, even though some people don't like kids as much, when you go and you find and you see their smiles and their joy, it's just, it's life-changing. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else that was impactful for your faith? And what are you taking with you from that experience that has helped to form your next steps with your faith growth and development?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So going into the trip, just like for me, I was super anxious going into it. Like, I never really fly or anything like that. So just the whole trip in general was like super new to me. And so that was like pretty nervous. It made me pretty nervous. But as we went through the trip, it was just really comforting to me to see the way God worked through it, just to like comfort me and things like that. Like, one of the days we were walking, or we were Ubering to the volleyball game, and our driver was like a Christian, and it was so like crazy to me that in like such a community like that God would put a Christian man like to be our Uber driver playing worship music that we could sing along to in the car. And yeah, just the way like we would go through the days, and there would be little like kind of hints for me at least that would be like, oh, like God's with us, like he's comforting me. Even like when we would get off the subway, there would be like people preaching in the midst of the subway, and they'd be like, oh, like you need Jesus, like come to the Lord. And so things like that, just to know that other Christians were around us on the trip was just super impactful for me.
Cool. Noah?
Yeah, similar to Molly, I was hanging out in one of the classrooms at PS29, and I was talking with this kid. I can't remember his name, but there's a lot of names, so I'm not a good names guy. But anyways, he asked my name, and I said my name's Noah, and he was like, oh, like Noah in the Ark, and I was just totally like, I don't know, surprised, because none of these kids like ever mentioned like the Bible, or I asked like a couple questions about it, and no one really like knew about like Jesus or the Bible. And so it was really cool to I think his name was Javier, and yeah, he was just talking about Noah and the Ark, and I was just surprised. And he said that he reads the Bible a lot and that he loves it, and so that was just really encouraging.
Awesome. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think for me, going into the trip, like, I was just trying to remind myself, like, over and over, like, be joyful, like, show God's light wherever I can. But, like, when I talked about PS29, like, the first day, that really just showed me, like, oh, I really have to be, like, super extra happy, because, like, they're happy. Like, their level was so high already. So, yeah, I think for me, it's just, like, reminding myself, like, shine God's light. And the kids were, like, helping me with that, too. I think they were just, like, super encouraging in that way. They probably didn't know that they were impacting me in that way. They were just being themselves. So, yeah, I think for me, just remembering to shine God's light wherever I go.
All right, yeah, that sparked something that I recall. I'll come back to that. Molly?
Yeah, for me, like also going into the trip, I was just thinking like, oh, I want to impact these kids, and I want to like show God's love to them. But like looking back on it, I feel like they also like impacted me maybe even more than I did them. Just like the way they showed me how to love just fully and outwardly to everybody, and just like how to be grateful and things like that. So I just, building off what she said, just to be grateful and things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, so coming back to that, maybe for Mrs. Davis, this area is a low-income area, correct? So, and I know that with doing other service projects, going to third world countries, and I know Mr. Bailinga and I went to South Africa, and just what you guys have said in terms of just the joy that they have for God and for life, and they don't have a lot of things. So maybe Mrs. Davis, you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's interesting. They don't like, I mean, my kids have so many things, and all these kids here, we're very blessed. And I think that really showed when we showed up. All these kids wanted was us. Like they would line up, man, this school is big. So they would like line up in different grades, and they would see us. Their hands would all be on the barbed wire or on the fence waiting for us out. Like, it was so cute. And then we run in and they just run off, or they chase a kid, or they were just so happy to have us there. And it was interesting because a couple kids had never been on a service trip. They were like, why aren't we calling this a missions trip? And there was a conversation that came up a couple times. And Mr. Sapel was like, you know what, we're going into a public school, and this public school has let us into their doors. And that doesn't happen very often, almost maybe never. And we need to be a little bit careful. And just, we talked as a group about how you can show Jesus through your actions. And if they know that we're Christians, I remember I gave you guys that challenge the day before we left, that if they look at how you guys are acting and how you guys are serving, and they think, what kind of God would this be that his followers are so joyful and so generous and so kind? And I think they did a great job of that. But yeah, it does show. When we came back, we were all like, man, we don't need all the things that we have, hey? And those experiences really matter. And honestly, I'm so thankful for Langley Christian. This was not prompted or sponsored. That they allowed us to go on this trip and give our students an experience like this. I've also done service and missions trips to Haiti and Paraguay, China, Mexico, but this was a really unique one because we were all English-speaking people. We all, have, a lot of these kids have phones, but they don't have a lot of toys. And so we were able to relate to them in a really cool, unique way, just being in the same continent. It was cool.
Awesome. Well, it was great to hear from each and every one of you. We want to thank you for being our panel today. And we want to thank our listeners for listening to us. We want to be interactive, so we want to remind you that if you have any questions or comments, that you can email us at podcasts@langleychristian.com. And we'd love to hear from you. So thanks for listening.